Hey guys, it's been quite a long day. It's been a full day of Six Nations rugby. Some great ones to watch, and I must admit, it's been a wonderful sunny day in Pretoria. Temperatures in the 30s. It's really been for a day for being around the pool. It was some really quality rugby. Had a braai and tended to watch a bit of the Six Nations. So I can't say, all in all, pretty much a perfect day. So let's get to the rugby. Must admit, quality game there in Dublin. Ireland winning in the end after England did pretty well in that first half. You got to give England a lot of credit. They worked out the Irish. They sort of flooded the breakdown. They worked out the Irish attack. Really tried to have a go at them. Their line speed was incredible in that first half. But Ireland made some adjustments at halftime, and when they made those adjustments, the game changed. It was certainly one for the books because Ireland really turned up the heat in the second half. So much so that England couldn't handle it, and Ireland got a bonus point try. The scoreline flatters England in that second half, although after the first half, they would have expected to be ahead. So in the end, what do we think about this performance? Well, to be honest, Ireland is still Ireland. They're still going to take some doing to beat them, and that game between them and France is probably going to be the decider. That's the way it looks at the moment. You can't see any other side really challenging them. England are going to have a hard time. They've got France next. They've got a very tough game coming up next. You feel they had some plans worked out, and it worked pretty well for them in the first half. They really rattled Ireland in that first half. But as I say, the changes that Ireland made in that second half already sort of opened it up, and England were caught around the fringes. Well, I want to say it's not the inside ball; it's the running line that they used. They draw the inside tackler around the fringe, and it creates the hole. And Ireland exploited that quite well. In the first half, it was very much loop around, send the ball quite wide to the winger and try and make inroads like that. That didn't really work. England rush defence caught them a lot of the time. And they, as I say, they flooded the breakdown. Ireland never got quick ball. But as soon as the second half, those changes they made, you suddenly saw Ireland get on the front foot. You saw them get a lot more sort of find gaps around the side, and really did well. So Ireland are still the quality team. Simon Easterby got his first win. They'll be extremely happy with the bonus point victory. They're still the team to beat in the Six Nations. England, unfortunately, they sort of teeter between disaster and world champions. It depends which week they are and what their media say. But they still a way off. I think they were brave tonight. I think there's some great individual performances. But other than that, not much to write home about. The problem here for England is, do you see sort of progress under Steve Atherton? Steve Borthwick, sorry. Steve Atherton, somebody else. But do you see progress for them under Steve Borthwick? They're brave, but it's one thing to be brave. And when you're England, you want to win the Six Nations. And that performance is not going to be good enough to beat France. It's not going to be good enough to beat Ireland. And so that's going to leave you with competing with Scotland, for third or fourth spot in the Six Nations. And that's not good enough. So I think, they had a plan. It worked for them for a while. But they didn't have a plan B. And when Ireland sort of switched gears at halftime, they really came out firing. Of course, the one player I want to point out for England, I thought Ben Earl was great. I thought Tom Curry and Ben Curry did a lot of work off the ball as well. Tommy Freeman really impressed me. The guy never says die. Some really good performances there. But all in all, not good enough. Ireland kept march on. It's going to take something to beat them, especially in Dublin. And have France got it? Well, that we'll have to see. Yeah, it's just one example of the way England attacked in that first half. This was a really good try. Nice little stab through from Henry Slade there. And a wonderful follow-up for Callum Murdy in his debut test. A great try for him. Something really, really impressive from England. And that's where they found gaps in Ireland's defence. Not that we didn't expect that, but it was quite impressive in the first half. Here's a good example of how Ireland caught England in that second half. If you just look at that gap that they find there, just around the fringes, they just draw in the defender just so well, and then just pass at the right time. Jameson Gibson Park is brilliant with this, and this sort of changed the game. These type of tries, there was more than one of them, and certainly that had a huge effect. And England were very vulnerable around those fringes. Ireland exploited that quite well in the second half. Another example of this, and again, through the gap there, found the gap, and this was basically the try that sealed everything. Ireland really found gaps in England's so around the second half, and spreading it wide. Yeah, England was always going to be at a disadvantage, and this certainly was the game-changing try. This was sealed the game and sent Dublin into a rapture. So a huge win for Ireland there, and we'll have a look at some of the stats now as well. So the first one I wanted to have a look at is very easy. It's just the time in lead. England were in the lead for 44 of the minutes, 54% of the game. They had 70% in the last 10 minutes, but that didn't matter because Ireland's second half blew them away. Always an interesting one to look at, the 22-metre entries. Ireland had 11 entries, only a 2.1 average point scored. That doesn't really matter. They won the game. But just England were in Ireland's 22 a lot less, but did get some points scored. But that's a bit slighted because of the last 10 minutes where England scored 2 tries. Interesting one, the possession, pretty even there, although England had some possession the last 10 minutes, and that's where they scored 2 of their tries to make the scoreline look better. The attack stat really tells a story. Ireland 208 passes, 123 ball carries, 346 meters post contact, and 10 line breaks. Slightly better than England, but certainly made a huge difference in that second half. Most of England's tallies came from either in the first half or late in the game, and certainly Ireland dominated the second half when it counted and scored when it counted. Defence stat is also interesting. Teams made the same amount of tackles. Ireland missed more tackles than England, and that was mainly in the first half. But it shows you when it counted, they scored when it mattered. But that's a stat that Ireland will look at, and especially ahead of the France game, will be a huge one for them. They'll know they'll have to tighten up on defence. The penalty stats always interesting to watch. Just 8 penalties conceded by Ireland. England had a string of penalties in that first half where they got the yellow card for Marcus Smith. That counted against them, but Ireland certainly exploited the penalties they had as well. Ben O'Keefe had a great game, I thought, a really well-controlled game, and certainly did well for the occasion. Some quick individual stats, big numbers here by James Lowe. You'll see him all throughout. He had a great game, really dominated, but it's interesting to see all the carries are Ireland. Line breaks, also James Lowe dominating there. Of course, some of them led to tries. Caelan Murley and Tommy Freeman both having big games for England as well. Interesting one on the tackles completed. Ben Curry had a huge game off the scene. Josh van der Flier, same thing. Both of them, really weren't in the limelight a lot of the time, but really put in a lot of hard work. Mario Itoje was everywhere. Really a great game for the England captain as well. And the final stat, Tom Curry having a big game at the breakdown. Did it work for England to play the 3 fetchers? Obviously, the result would say no, but I think in that first half they really disrupted Ireland. So maybe partly so. It was an interesting ploy to try, and you got to give them credit for it as well. It worked for a while, but big game by Tom Curry as well. Both Curry brothers really had great games. The loose trio did pretty well for my liking, but the result is the result. All in all, a great game to watch, but where does that leave England now? They're going to be need to win against France. Not sure I can see that happening on today's performance. France just look too good at the moment. It looks like it's going to be a 2-horse race between Ireland and France for the Six Nations, but England certainly have a lot to prove. They'll be under a lot of pressure this week at home against France, and especially after what happened 2 years ago at Twickenham as well. Ireland, well, yeah, you can criticise a lot. A new coach. I know he's been around, Simon Easterby, but yeah, this was an important win for them. They kicked off their campaign with a bonus point. That's all that matters. They'll move on. Their big games are still coming. Let me know what you thought of the game. Let me know who you thought stood out and what the chances are of England and Ireland for the rest of the Six Nations. Leave them in the comments. Great to do these videos, and I'll try and do a bit more as well. But thanks for watching, and I'll chat to you soon. Cheers.